And we are now live.
This is Senate Appropriations, and we're continuing our work on the FY 2023 budget. And this afternoon, we're starting with testimony from the Department of Liquor and Lottery. And so we have Wendy Knight here and Brian Evans and
Andrew Collier is Deputy Commissioner. Jacqueline Posley is our Legislative and Communications Liaison.
oh, what an assignment.
Tell me about it. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. So we might be seeing more of you. I am going to, let's see, is this the document that we should be
Correct.
looking at? Okay. Welcome, Commissioner. I haven't seen you since saw you in West Amble.
Yes.
Next door.
Yes.
But you've probably got into obviously more exhaustive detail with our colleagues in the House, but we'd like to kind of go over the high points, and also if you would to give us an update on how things are going, what you see as the opportunity, the challenges. I know that the governor's got a proposal in for sports betting and expanding our current lottery system and modernizing it. That seems, could I have a napkin, whatever that is? Thank you. I'd like one. Thank you. We probably could start with the highlights of the department and the budget, and then maybe just open it up for comments and questions, or it's a way that you can give us an update on what the department's doing, what you see as really things you're proud of, and things that maybe are still a challenge for you.
Absolutely. For the record, my name is Wendy Knight. I'm Commissioner of the Department of Liquor and Lottery. Thank you for inviting us here. I understand we're the first sort of in-person. Should I leave this on? Leave this on? Is that okay? Everyone can hear me? I'll try to talk loud. Hello, Senator Sears, Senator Baruth, or I should say.
Yeah, I can hear.
I can't see you. I'm waving to the camera. So the department, as you know, was integrated by the legislature in 2018. So that is one of our strategic priorities, is to further integrate the department. Deputy Collier and I are looking for office space that will combine the offices. We've done a whole lot of work with Justin Kinney, who's from the Chief Performance Officer, to have the departments be more collaborative, and we're working on a reorganization so that the department have reporting structures along operational functions as opposed to divisions. It's been a little challenging with one office located in Berlin and the other office located in Montpelier, so we're doing a lot of work to really further integrate that team. We have done very well in terms of sales, both on the liquor side and the lottery sales. We saw last year on lottery the highest Insta tickets, $130 million, I think, was the highest year. We saw record sales on the liquor side as well.
So people were home and
they were consuming alcoholic beverages, and they were buying lottery tickets. Yes, exactly. So sales are good because they
now you're gonna have to buy gas.
Generate revenue for the, right? So the lottery revenue is generating funds for the education funds, and the liquor sales are generating revenue for the general fund. We have been engaged in an online licensing portal on the liquor side that will launch in June. That's been over a couple of years now. So it will take, right now, it's a send in a check and fill out a form, very antiquated way of securing a liquor license, and we're trying to modernize that. That will launch in June, and that will enable establishments to apply for liquor, lottery, and tobacco licenses online. We're looking forward to that rollout. The other major project that the department has been involved in is a vendor conversion on the lottery side. We signed a 10-year, $150 million contract with a new vendor. And so that's almost a year process, and that will be live in September. So we have two major IT initiatives which are on track, and we're excited about that. One of the things in the FY23 budget is a new initiative. It's what we call a B2B on-premise account. So right now, if you are a bar or a restaurant or a hotel, you walk into an 802 Spirit store to buy your liquor for your establishment the same way that you, Senator Starr, as a consumer would walk in, right? And so we think that that is not a business way of operating. If we're in the business, which we are, an enterprise fund of selling and purchasing distilled spirits, we think that we should function more as a business. So we want to create this online portal and this program that will save the bars and the restaurants and the hotels a little bit in terms of efficiency, but also in terms of cost.
Is that going to have an economic impact on your local stores? Because right now,
No.
those purchases.
No, because the way the sales program is set up, it's the suppliers cover the delta. So the agent stores, even right now, we have products that go on sale every other month, and the agent stores are paid based on the retail price. They're not paid on the sale price, so they receive their commission just like a normal product with a sales.
Yeah, but as I understand it, you would be eliminating the stores from the transaction.
No, sorry. It's not, you're not buying online.
Oh.
You're searching for the product. It's right now, instead of walking in with a paper form to go buy your 802 Spirits, you're placing your order online, right? And as an agency store, you're looking at the inventory, you're placing it, and then you're going into the 802 Spirit store and you're picking it up.
I see.
No,
Okay.
the 802 Yeah, the 802 Spirit store is very much a important partner in how we sell and distribute alcohol.
A lot of small stores, rely on that, even though it isn't a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not to
But in
keep
some of
every-
these cases, a resort like Jay
Yeah.
could be a fairly significant
See,
market.
they have to go down to
They
the
do.
liquor outlet
Yes.
and buy their liquor.
Yes.
They'd love to be their own agent.
Yeah, so the on-premise accounts buy through the 802 Spirit stores. We're making it easier for them to do that. We're making it less expensive for them to do that. So we're really, again, we're trying to move away from checks and paper forms. We're trying to create. We all know that we are functioning online, maybe not so good sometimes, but we're a digital world, so we're trying to make sure that our programs are online. That's why there's the online licensing portal, and then we'll have this online B2B program as well. We have a youth education initiative. One of our other strategic goals has been a youth education initiative. I don't think that many people realize that we do a fair amount of education in our department, right? So it's not just compliance and enforcement. The first part of that is education. So if you're a licensee, if you're a server or you're a clerk, you're required to take education courses. We also have supplemental education courses beyond the certification that you need to take. We want people to understand what it is to be able to serve alcohol. We do a lot of work in terms of underage drinking. So one of this initiatives that we've made a strategic goal is to reach as many people, the youth and the parents and the guidance counselors, so that they understand the dangers of underage drinking. So from our perspective, we start with education, and then we move to compliance, and then we move to enforcement. We believe that our licensees are also wanting to know what the rules and the regulations are. So we operate from a perspective of the best thing we can do as a regulatory agency is to educate our licensees about what the rules and the regulations are, and the proper way to serve and card, et cetera. So that youth education initiative was launched in the fall, and that's going quite well. One of the other things that we're focusing on is really, as that regulatory agency that works with businesses, becoming much more customer service focused, much more business support focused, really trying to make Vermont more affordable for Vermonters, and that includes the businesses as well. So it's a quick sort of summary of kind of some of the priorities. Would you like me to pause for a second?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Blue.
Commissioner, thank you. I think I'm on page 1 of your handout, and I see warehouse and logistics.
Yes.
And when I was on economic development, which is now going back 4 or 5 years, there was some doomsday talk about the warehouse. We went to look at it. We explored some potential operations with an outfit in Maine to get rid of the need to warehouse.
Yeah.
Where does that all stand now?
Thank you, Senator Bruce, for the question. Good to see you again. So VGS owns obviously our building and the warehouse, and there was a study done. I don't know if that was the one that you're referring to, Senator Bruce, but it was a comprehensive study that was done on the warehouse and what space we needed to grow into and the return on investment, whether it made sense for VGS to contract, with a what do they call it? Fit to build, or you know what I'm saying, right? You have a blank
Build to
slate.
rent.
Thank you, fit to build. Or whether or not we build our own. And when I came on board within the last year, BGS said their preference is to build fresh. They don't like to lease. That I think turned out to be one of the most economical over the long run, was to build. I had conversations with Commissioner Fitch. There is nothing, and obviously this year in the capital budget, so it's something. The governor had a tour within the last year as well. The warehouse is functioning. Part of it, times it's full, but because there's been so many supply chain issues that have COVID have impacted, we've had a lot more out of stock issues. I think you remember hearing about this last spring and summer, and people were complaining about brands. This is really a national brand shortage. So we do have annex space that we rent from VGS. It's around the corner where A&R is. So right now, it's not ideal space because we can't grow. Like, part of the problem with being confined with the space is, unlike New Hampshire, which owns its massive warehouse stores, they can buy bulk product. If you're able to buy more quantity, then you have less of an out of stock issue and you can get better pricing. So what we've done right now is, it's still on our priority, but what we're trying to focus on is the office space, at least getting the 2 office space departments in one space. And then we would continue to use the warehouse, the liquor warehouse as is, until such time that, we have BGS does a RFP or a bid.
You get rid of that Russian stuff and it'll give you a lot more.
Well, they already have, I believe.
Yeah, it's not that much quantity, but yes, to your point, if we are able to, one of our legislative priorities is to remove the fortified wines and what they call ready to drink. And if we were able to remove that from the DLC and have that go to the private sector, then we will have more warehouse space to bring in some of that extra product and bring in some of the premium products. One of the things we're seeing on the liquor side is that people are not necessarily consuming more, they're consuming more expensive products.
That's
And
been a trend for a while.
yeah, and I think that's part of what we are seeing, recently, is that the upsell and the premiumization. I think if people are gonna consume, maybe it's because they saw COVID, 6 million people worldwide died, so they figure, okay, well, if I'm gonna drink, I better drink, the good stuff, right? So
They just wild Irish stuff on the bottom shelf of the store.
Senator Ruth, does that answer your question about the warehouse?
It does answer my question about what your current thinking is, but
Yeah.
I would just say overall that back 6 years ago or so, it was the thinking of the then commissioner that action needed to be started, because given the long timeline to construct or to move into some other arrangement, it doesn't seem like we've been doing much except fiddling around with existing warehouse space. It's my memory is that it's a more pressing problem than that. So I'll leave it at that, but I would hope that,
Maybe it was in the eyes of the manager.
Yeah, it's always in the eyes of the
Yeah.
beholder, Phil.
well, I would just hope that we don't wind up with a dire need to move to a new warehouse and then be behind the gun. So anyway.
Yeah, I hear you, and I can assure you that it's on the list. It's not the top of the list, but it's something that the deputy and I are exploring with BGS. Right now, most immediately, we're trying to get the office-based folks into one space, if you will, so that we can function as a team, but it's definitely a priority. I can't say that it's an immediate priority, and a part of it is working with our BGS colleagues who are the ones that are, really in charge of the building space. And
So
it's-
going, and Senator Starr touched on it, and that has to do with the products from Russia,
Correct.
and they've been pulled from the shelf.
Yes, they have been.
And, as well as all the local agents and,
Yes, so what we did is.
what have you done, brought them back?
We are in the process of that this week. Yep. So last week, the governor issued a statement on Monday.
A cat slept inside my mask.
These masks, right? And then issued the executive order on Thursday. We have all of it's not that much in the grand scheme of things. There was about 700 products that were Russian made, really just 2 brands that were on the shelves, 2 other brands that were available special order. We removed all of that from the shelves, and this week we're moving it back to the warehouse where it will sit, and we're just gonna keep it in the warehouse until we decide to do something different with it. So it's just, again, it's not that much product. And then there's another supply that was sitting in the warehouse, and that's about 575 bottles. So, just to put it in context, the Russian-made products that we have had.
Mostly vodka?
Oh, it's vodka, it's all
Oh,
vodka, yeah. So since July, this beginning of the
Not
fiscal,
even sleeping bits, that's brandy, but that's not.
we only have.
It's vodka, baby.
Yeah, it's the vodka that we have. We have no other spirits that are made Russian, but it's $38,000 worth of sales on the Russian-made products since July. Total vodka sales have been 16 million. So the amount of Russian vodka compared to the total vodka is nothing.
Well,
Very, very, very small.
Okay.
That's the plan with the Russian-made.
Yes,
So I just want to ask a question, this has come up in previous years with regard to, there's more online gambling now, and of course, New York State moving to it, which a lot of Vermonters are going over there.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering, how is the program going whereby you can pay for help, rehab for people?
Oh, yes.
From gambling. I was
Yes.
wondering, how is that going? Sometimes people ask, well, here you are, just letting people gamble.
So we have a contract with the Howard Center. It's $250,000 a year grant that we give them. And we had our first year, our calendar year, we had our first quarter of information from them. We've had, I believe, 6 participants, not, not those kind of users, participants in the program. And which is very small. And so one of the things we are trying to do is figure out a way to be more proactive. The Howard Center, it's more of a reactive, right? So how do we make sure that we are more available? And that's part of what we're doing in terms of requesting an advertising budget, a little bit of an increase on problem gambling, because we want more people to know about it. We are using the QR codes, and we were talking about ways to get the message out there. We're doing a underwriting spot on VPR because we want people to know that if they have an issue with problem gambling, that there's some resources that we have available.
And so is that available to people around the state?
Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, it absolutely is a statewide program.
Yeah, a few years ago, I don't think we have it any longer, but we had a hotline that people could call.
Yeah,
And
that was a long time ago.
It was costing us, I don't know, 3, 4, I don't even recall, but it was almost like your deal. So if you had or 6.
Just apparently we had 6
So if you multiply
clients,
that out,
yeah.
it'd be 24
yeah,
at 240 grand, so it's 10 grand a call. Well, this other deal that I think we did away with it.
We did, this is
And
why we
It was
switched.
about the same kind of deal as that. I mean, it was costing a tremendous
Yeah.
amount, nobody was calling.
right. So I think if it's okay, our finance director has a comment on that. Brian.
Our budget for the problem gambling grant is $250,000. The actual grant is written at $140,000 a year. We had that budget higher because when we first did our pilot with Howard Center, we were not expecting it to be statewide. The pandemic sort of changed our focus. Since then, we have written in our latest grant that just started, we've written in a lot more controls and a lot more data response. So we are just now getting the data that we had sought to get in the first iteration of this grant. And we expect it to expand. So I did want to clarify that the amount of money we're spending is not the
Thank you.
full budget.
It's not the 240, it's the one.
It's about 140,000, and this is completely online, and the 6 is participants, people who've actually signed up for the counseling. We do get several more calls that we are just now starting to get the data on. The old hotline that you're referring to just referred people to expensive services, which is why we got rid of it. More people were calling that to find out lottery numbers than they were actually seeking problem gambling services, which is why we shifted focus to the grant model we're under now.
They made a ton of money for doing that.
They
So,
provided a very nice office in New York City for themselves.
Senator Westman, you had a question?
So you won't be surprised in this. So I get a fair amount of complaints, and I know that you're aware of this, that the type of liquor going to different establishments does not match their clientele.
Correct.
And so if you have a place that makes high-end cocktails
Correct.
and you have and I don't have the right term, but the lottery hereby, that high-end liquor goes to a place that doesn't pour cocktails, and then,
Yeah.
Less
Yeah.
expensive cocktails?
well, no, you,
Or,
well,
how does it work?
what you do is you have if you have a restaurant that makes high-end cocktails, and
Right.
they can't get the liquor that
Right.
they need to make those, but that alcohol that is the high-end stuff that you would make that with goes to a place where it just sits on the shelf for
How
months
do you
and
move
months.
your inventory?
So-
around?
So how do you move the
Yeah,
inventory like that?
I can explain. One of the biggest complaints, like you, Senator Westman, you receive is that the availability and the quantity of the kinds of alcohol that we have is not a high caliber like a non-controlled state. If you go to New York State and you know it's distributed in the private sector, there's just a lot more availability. And I'm not just talking about the size of New York State. Connecticut's the same way, right? So people are constantly complaining if you go to the 802 spirit stores, because we have limited warehouse space, because we're the ones that are buying and selling the alcohol. We have a listing process, and then you might go into the shelves and you see a few brands of bourbon and maybe a couple of sherries, and people are complaining about the availability and not such a good choice or selection. So we're doing a couple of things to address that. Over the years, we've been really looking to see if we can get more craft spirits in the shelves and really look at what people are wanting to buy. We're increasing our listing committee so that we have folks from the bars and the restaurants to come and help us select which products. You're talking about the rare spirits, which is, so we have a certain amount of quantity that we get that can fill enough for the 802 spirit stores. So we have the stores order that and we distribute it, and we can have enough quantity that we can restock that. Then there's something that's called an allocated product, which is and there's different tiers of allocated products.
And
So
then there's the ones you put out in lottery.
that's the rare spirits, right?
Yep.
So that's the very high end. They're rare in every state, whether you're a control state or a licensed state. The producers make such a fine amount of quantity of it that it's highly in demand and people, highly sought after. So the way we've done it in the last few years is we have a rare spirits sweepstakes, and then there's a rare spirits raffle. So we basically try to prioritize it going out in a transparent and an egalitarian fashion. Part of the problem is it was just open to consumers, but the bars and the restaurants that have high-end cocktail programs were like, well, we would like to have some of this product too. So we've opened that up so that it goes to some of the bars and the restaurants. We are making further changes to that rare spirit sweepstake, because what happens is only so many of those bars and restaurants know about it. What we're finding out is we have more product that's available than the bars and the restaurants are filling out their, sweepstakes or entering the sweepstakes. So we're constantly fine tuning that. Our goal is to make sure that the product that we can get in is distributed out to the stores so the consumers can find it, and distributed to the bars and the restaurants so they can sell it at $25 a pour, or a high-end cocktail for $20 with the spirit. So we are constantly making changes to that. The other thing is, one of the goals with the excluding the fortified wines from the DLC is you'll see a lot of those artisanal specialty vermouths and liqueurs that are in that category, sherries, for example. If we are able to move that category out of the DLC and have that be in the private sector, then we expect that to grow as well. So not only will it grow from 80 stores, which are the 802 Spirit stores, but potentially 1,000 or 900 second-class licenses. And then you'll see that the market will expand because you have more stores that are selling it, but you're also going to see brokers and suppliers want to be in those stores. So I think you're going to see an increase in the availability of the sherries and the ports and those liqueurs that are often made in those, cocktail programs.
Well, where you frequent. Senator Starr and I don't.
I
You don't make a dime off in either of us.
Well, I get a fair amount of complaints about
Yes.
that
Yeah.
I'm selling a cocktail.
Because you're in a high-end district.
Well,
You're in the kingdom.
if you have places that can't get what they need for alcohol to make
Right.
the drinks that
Exactly.
they want, and then when they see a bottle sitting on someone's shelf and
Exactly.
it sits there for months,
Mhm.
well, that really doesn't do us any good for.
No.
But if they see it on an 802 Spirit store, they can order it. So the on-premise accounts just need to contact the 802 Spirit stores and place an order. So, but I hear you, and I hear that too. So we are constantly looking at ways to address that.
And the B2B website's gonna be a big
Correct,
move
yes,
towards the
that'll allow, exactly, the
So the
on-premise account.
website will do,
So that will allow, so we call it a searchable website. It's not really e-commerce because you're not buying from the website, but that'll allow the on-premise accounts, the bars and the restaurants and Stowe that you're referring to, they can go on the B2B portal and they can find where this product is. It might not be available at their Stowe 802 Spirit store, but they might find it in Winooski, or they might find it in Bennington. And then our retail coordinators and our delivery trucks can make sure it gets to the place it needs to go. So the searchable website will be used for consumers that are trying to find. I had a colleague who was trying to make grasshoppers this past weekend and couldn't find creme de menthe or something. But so she would have liked to have gone on to find where, so if you can't find creme de menthe, let's say, for example, what's the comparable product? Like what else is available? What other brands are available? And that's what this B2B portal, the searchable website, will be able to do, so that the on-premise accounts can find where this product is. They can find substitute products and can move it around.
So this software,
Yes.
was this part of a budget initiative?
Yes, it
In
is.
the past, it seems like we had discussions around this.
It's in our FY 23 budget. It's 1.1 million for the implementation, and it's been approved by an ADS IT form. It's been approved by finance and
So is this
management.
a software, package that is used in other states?
It is. It's used right now. We use it right now, D365. The state uses it, but the department uses it as well. So this is just a different module that we would be using. So it's a system that we've had experience.
So that's one of the, in your budget then is the.
Yes, it's a $1.1 million line item for that B2B online board.
And is that, that's for the acquisition of the software, the licensing, and then,
It's for the, it's to implement the program. So it's to, for the IT component, it's the ADS services, and it's for the part of the D365 module. And that is
That's
in,
licensing system support, searchable website 1.1, that's called Grow the Economy.
yes, it's part of growing the economy. It's also part of making Vermont more affordable. But it's part of the grow the economy because we're growing the hospitality business. If you make the cost of goods.
How does it make it more affordable?
Because part of the program is a sales program. So we are going to reduce the cost of goods for distilled spirits for the on-premise accounts by 3%.
By 3%?
That's the goal. So the sales component is part of it, and then the online licensing is part of it. Part of it, what we're gonna do is allow the on-premise accounts to use credit cards as well. Right now, you can't use a credit card if you're a buyer.
But then you're underwriting the cost of the transaction.
Yes, that's built into the budget, that the extra cost would be for the credit card usage, which consumers can use now. So we're expanding the use of credit card. To get their bank fee line.
That's not in our operating budget, that's in the demand-driven budget, which the net profit that you'll see in the big bill up for the net transfer reflects that.
Okay. What is that, well, you accept, American Express is the most costly in terms of transaction fee. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Limitations on which credit cards you accept.
We only accept free MasterCard, Visa, and American Express. We have the statewide agreements from MasterCard and Visa, and we have our own agreement with American Express. We average right around 3% for all.
You see a lot of places that don't accept American Express because I think it was 5%.
It was a challenge. They have a monopoly on their card, and it was a challenge getting that agreement signed, as Commissioner Knight can attest to.
I don't happen to have one on purpose.
And I think the fewer, it's not used that much. I think it's, of all the credit cards that they
Supposed to
use.
be, yeah, most people view it as
Three
fine.
3 to 4 million sales is it per year for compared to our 200 million.
So what other highlights do you have in here?
Do you want me to do the ups and downs?
Well, I don't want you to do line by line. For example, you've got a down here of $252. I really don't care about that. Or 176.
Commissioner, if you'd like, they're sort of in the liquor admin, there are sort of 4 key, that would be, I guess it's page 5, I'm sorry, I didn't remember these, but on the liquor administration page, you're gonna see as we talked about, the searchable website. Just above that is the licensing system support. This is part of the contract of the system.
So we're for 1.5.
The 1.5 down is us taking down the budget for the licensing system build. So we didn't do one-time funds, we built it into our budget to pay for that licensing system. And so we're bringing that budget down because that system will be paid in 22.
Well, that means more revenues for us.
It means we are shifting it over to the searchable website.
Oh, no. What you make on your peanuts, we've lost on our bananas here.
So the contractual obligations pretty much net out because the savings that we're getting from finishing the licensing system are going to be spent in the maintenance of that licensing system and the build of the new searchable website. Next major item.
But let me ask, the searchable website, that 1.1, is that, it's at an upfront cost and will it go down in future years? Or are we talking about a 1.1 million system?
That is build and implementation cost. So that is to build it, to get it up and going, everything you need for the first 18 months to be able to get this ready to
And
go.
after 18 months, that.
Ongoing operations, we have some estimates.
About $300,000.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's all I
yeah,
want.
that's, yeah.
So the next sort of major changes that I would take note of would be the agent inventory tablets up of 30,000 down below. That is just an expansion. It's not a full expansion into all locations, but that is, if you remember, I believe it was last year or the year before, all the years seem to blend together lately. We did expand and provided tablets which allow for better inventory control and act as an extra sort of cash register for the busier locations. We are going to, basically, it's the same amount of money we spent in the pilot of this one. We're going to expand it a bit more, sort of expand the pilot, because the agents that are using this have said that it's a very good program. The next big sort of item, it would be the ban for small deliveries and stock relocation is the next sort of big ticket item that I would take note of.
You have quite a few small delivers in the area.
No, so what happens is we have 7 large trucks and we do deliveries Monday through Thursday. Because we're having such an issue with the out of stock issues, what we end up doing sometimes is we take our own vehicles, the retail coordinators will take their own trucks. When we get a shipment in that is Tito's, for example, and it's been out of stock and it's in, we want to get it out to the stores as soon as possible. So we take, again, our private vehicles and put cases in and drive it around. So we think that having a van, a smaller vehicle to be able to, one, move product around from agent store to agency store. Remember when, something's out of stock, it might be out of stock in the warehouse, but it might exist in another agency store somewhere. So that's why we've budgeted for a van, is for the purposes of moving some of that out of stock
It's
around.
better to do it this way than get it from the pool. Won't they?
Oh, you're talking about the BGS fleet?
Yeah, our fleet, all of our vehicles at the agency are DLL. We have some sort of arrangement that was negotiated a few years ago where we don't use BGS, correct. We have our own, they're all licensed through us. We do the maintenance and all of that.
Yeah.
So, but that's what the van is. Again, we're trying to anticipate that we're not gonna see the out of stock issue disappear anytime soon. We wanna be a little more agile. The other concern we have is that CDL drivers are very hard to find. There's a national shortage of CDL drivers. We have had, I think we're going on 3 months now recruiting for a CDL driver. Can't
We should
find-
make that a job description requirement for
Do you take people with
the
CDL
commissioner on
part-time?
down.
Pardon me?
Do you take part-time workers with a CDL license? Bobby's gonna be looking for a job this summer.
You have a CDL,
Where's,
Oh,
you could drive
see?
over the summer.
I have too many jobs already.
Have you ever thought about expanding your portfolio of talent? You've got a CDL as well.
I could get a CDL. I know I'm gonna have to. Janet, we're all.
I know,
Andrew's
that's what I'm
gonna have to
saying.
get
I
a
think we
CDL,
should make it a
Jackson.
job requirement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, most of those rigs are all automatic shipped now and,
Yep,
yeah.
we're gonna have to. It's gonna be part of a requirement of working for the DLL.
Yeah, we have a
Right.
CDL driver.
I do not want to drive one of those. It's like a picture in Vermont. Are you kidding? There's a special
Senator
level.
Bishop, I'd like to give you three. So that's the ban.
I thought I could drive a snowplow, but there wouldn't be a guardrail between here and and I must admit, this morning coming in, there were sections where the road was not very visible in places.
Oh,
around
that wind
Canada.
was
Yeah,
terrible.
and snow, so. Some of the days you have to do deliveries aren't really the greatest. So the governor has a proposal, in terms of additional revenues from Keno and sports betting. And that would be,
Yes, yes, in the FY 23 budget, the governor has monies for $2 million for iLottery, which is allowing the online lottery. That's part of a modernization effort. And then the other is what we call bar gaming entertainment. Keno happens to be one of the brands, but we call it bar gaming entertainment, and that's the machines that go into the third and first class licenses. And that's another $2 million for the bar gaming entertainment. The sports betting initiative is with economic development, Senate Economic Development. That's another additional $2 million that's expected in revenue. And I know there's been some discussion, I think maybe in Senate Finance, maybe in this committee. I have not testified yet, so I don't think there's been much movement on the sports betting bill in Senate Economic Development.
Can I just add, Madam Chair, can I add to that?
Senator Sears.
yes, I know Senator Sears, when we get into sports betting, I thought it would probably
Wake you up.
wake you up. Oh, that's not very kind.
I wasn't asleep. I was dealing with credit card problems.
Senator Westman falsely accused you.
Yeah, I know, and he kind of does that.
Yeah, he owes you a public apology because we
I know,
know.
it's a good
talking about
thing he's not,
sports betting.
it's a good thing I'm not across the table from him. First of all, it's an embarrassment, frankly, that we haven't been able to get a bill through at this point. And I totally agree with the governor's initiative. I quite frankly think $2 million is extremely low given what's being made in adjoining states. And it's into the $500 million range in New York already, and they just started. So it's really frustrating, but I have talked with Senator Sirach, and I'm hopeful that they will have a study in one of their bills coming.
We already
either
done that.
from
We
the
had
House.
that before, Senator Sears.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't get it out of the House.
I know.
So I would be fine with, but I don't have control over the bill, but I'm fine with whatever happened. I mean, I think it's unrealistic to think Vermonters aren't gambling online in other states. And it's unrealistic or even other countries, whether by Nigeria or whatever. That's where your sports betting dollars are going today. And I think it would be, I don't know how to get it out of Senate Economic Development. I know Senator Sorokin's very supportive, but it's been a frustration and embarrassment, quite frankly. And the governor keeps putting money in the budget, but so I don't know what to say other than what I've already said. I certainly support it.
Maybe you gotta change your attack game and do it right on the Senate floor.
I don't think the Senate's the issue. I think it's in
The
perhaps in
House.
the body.
Oh, it's in the House?
No, it's in the Senate.
Well, but the resistance has always been in the House.
It may take a House bill that they need to pass to attach it to.
Yeah, hook it right
So
on.
if the Department of Liquor and Lottery and et cetera now would like to work with myself and others, I'm happy to try to do that.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator Sears.
Oh, we did that in a Senate bill a couple of years ago, didn't we, Dick?
Yeah, and they refused.
I know, so, well-
Budget bill.
well, the governor does anticipate those revenues when he builds his budget.
Yeah. So maybe, I don't think he can do it by executive order.
I think so. But I think that where the obstacle has been, or the disagreement has been, not so much in the Senate, but in the other body. Okay, because I do remember some conference committees with that language, if
Yep.
I remember correctly.
Yes,
Yeah, and Senator Sears, you're absolutely correct. We know that Vermonters are participating in sports gambling or sports betting. They're doing it illegally. And so what that does is the revenues don't come to Vermont, right? And so this is a conservative $1.5 to $2 million, depending on the tax rate. New York has this 51% tax revenue share, and New Hampshire has a 51% tax revenue share. The numbers are, as you've mentioned, Senator Sears, quite significant. So we're missing out on those tax revenues. I recognize that federal funding right now makes us flush, but at some point that money will not be coming in anymore. So I do think that even $2 million a year is nothing to sneeze about. We could certainly use that money. There's a lot of need in the state. And the other thing is consumer protections, right? So when people are participating in sports betting, we know that it's tied to a lot of organized crime, it's tied to a lot of money laundering, and so if you're going to do it legally, you can then put in consumer protections.
Yep. Well, I can drive 8 miles and do it legally in New York.
Just drive over with your phone, the minute you go across the border, you can. do it.
Yeah, no, New York accepts
I know
that as
technology
long as
really has
it's in New
changed
York
the
State.
whole debate from what it was, right, you know, when the lottery, but that was Governor Snelling. And you think about how the world has changed and technology has altered so much of access to these gambling systems or whatever. So I think it's not on this side that there isn't a recognition. It's somewhat similar to the marijuana.
Exactly.
The arguments you're talking about, consumer protection, et cetera, organized crime, et cetera, black market. And so it seems like a lot of the same rationale is present for doing this. So, well, keep trying, but I think you probably need to make your spiel next door.
We have been, we've been in House Appropriations and House General a couple times, so we're keeping the message that I think would really benefit the state to legalize the sports betting that's happening illegally.
Well, what about Ways and Means?
Haven't been there yet.
Well, do you have statistics on what other states are bringing in?
Absolutely, yep, we have a memo that
Can you
we
get
shared.
them to me? That would be
Sure
helpful.
will. Yep.
Could provide it to Chrissy and then we'll put it on our web page and everybody can see what the
Yeah.
figures look like.
And part of that sports betting memo that we sent a few weeks ago has some of that, but we'll update that so that you have those statistics, Senator Sears.
Yeah, I mean, the Super Bowl was incredible. The amount of ads they had on all the New York television stations prior to the Super Bowl, urging people to use various betting, legal sports betting.
We're even looking into it for golf.
Golf?
Yes, for golf.
Oh.
Golf?
Golf, yes. Yeah,
Well, I don't know.
pretty similar to what they do for tennis. Part of it.
Just think of the opportunities are just unlimited.
I know.
You want to bet on, is it boy, girl, twins? I mean, just think about it. People are it. I know they are. I know.
Some of it does get a little ridiculous.
Yeah, it sure does.
Some of the
All right.
Super Bowl bets were on the ads and the length of how long the Star Spangled Banner would take.
Oh,
It had over and under numbers.
Really?
Well, make
They gotta be
ice out on
desperate.
Joe's Pond, what kind of rinky dink? Any other comments from the remote section? No? Okay. Anything else that we haven't covered?
Just 3 things on the lottery budget. We have a budget increase of $100,000, which is actually not an increase. It represents a new line item of market research. We're talking about, modernizing lottery initiatives. We have no data. We have no understanding. Again, if we're going to run an enterprise, so liquor and lottery are a $300 million enterprise. That's a $300 million business. If you're going to be in business, if the state is going to be in business, it needs to understand what the market is. And so that's the market research line item. We also have an increase.
Is that the first year?
Pardon me?
Not the first year, you
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, we don't have a
How
market
are you
research.
gonna measure the effectiveness of that?
Exactly. How do you even know? Because you don't even know who the players are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the idea is like, we even just
No,
a
my question
traditional
was, how
lottery.
do we know that the 100,000, how will we, how will you evaluate the return of making that investment?
So we would have the data, right? So we would have the information on the market and the players. So if it's not marketing, it's just what we call research. So we have no way right now to understand, you know, aside from taking one of us to try to do some research, we, you know, Jacqueline now is a great addition to the department, but we haven't had a legislative or communication liaison. So the research that we will gain will really help us understand what players are, the games they're playing, the amounts they're playing, you know, and so that we can really direct our gaming operations towards where the players are. And that's part of what we're trying to do with the modernization is we know that younger people are online. So they're not walking into a Vermont lottery agent store and buying a scratch ticket. So if we want to sustain the money that goes to the education fund, we need to broaden that kind of market and make sure that we're, you know, reaching the players where they are. So that's part of that research. So market just means, you know, you're in the insurance market, you need to do research on who your customers are and what they're using. And
I
that's
guess I was
what that is.
thinking about, how, if we say, here's 100,000,
Mhm.
and this is what you want to use it for.
Mhm.
A year from now, what will you be able to tell us in terms of what did that $100,000 achieve? That it allowed you to implement, I don't know, be much more strategic in this
Correct.
particular
Correct.
item, or,
Yes.
you know, or, in other words, this information is very powerful
Correct.
as long as it translates into some kind of action.
Operational.
And that's all I'm
change.
asking
Yes.
for, is that a
Yes.
year from now, whoever sits around this table would say, well, what did that marketing study tell you?
The research.
And what
yes.
did you do with it?
Correct. So we would be able to say, this is the market research, this is the information that it told us about the players and where they are and how much money they spend and what kinds of games. And then these are the changes we made to the gaming system because of where these people are and who they are. And maybe right now we assume that they're, you know, a 50-year-old man. And they're not, they're 35-year-old women, I'm just saying that, I don't know, so that's gonna change, if this is your market, how do you reach them and who they are, and then you change your marketing, but you also change the games, right? The way the games now are like Big Country Cash, and that's the only one I know. It's the new one, but you know, so there's all these different games and their colors and their names, and anyway, that's what that will tell us.
Last one, you had two others.
Yes, sorry, thank you. We talked a little bit about this, is the responsible gaming advertising. We're looking for a $25,000 increase to that to really get the word out that we have these resources available. And then out-of-state travel, again, there's been no budget for that or a tiny budget, and we're looking again for the lottery folks to be able to have them go to some of these conferences and some of these events where they can learn about the gaming system and meet their counterparts. Like Andrew has a really good relationship with the New Hampshire Lottery Commissioner, so he can understand what's working for them and what's not. And so part of that out-of-state travel is just to allow more of the lottery managers and directors to go and acquire that knowledge.
Lots of gasoline, you want to make it at the White River.
True that, it might not be getting us very far.
They're very good at carpooling.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'm about to hitchhiking, but you know. All right.
All right.
Well, good luck on that. And that's gonna be, of course, another operating cost, is distribution. It's not only the CDL drivers, but it's also.
Yes, absolutely, another unforeseen consequence.
I don't know, maybe you could burn the vodka.
Make it into fuel, yeah.
Well, somebody talked to make cancer.
Yeah, we talk about hand sanitizer. The problem, of course, though, is because we're not a private enterprise, even though we're an enterprise fund, we can't give it away, we can't sell it, so we don't know how to make, you know, we can't manufacture it, we're not manufacturers, so. It sounds like a great idea, and I've talked about this in the governor's office, but at the end of the day, like, to affect that kind of plan would be, you know, challenging.
You could probably mix that, or
Well, it made it total.
Gallon.
Yeah, and use
for-
it in your own
Okay.
vehicle, so, you know, that's.
Gallon for, in can. Probably burn it out.
Until the delivery truck catches on fire. And then I'm gonna say Senator Starr gave us that direction.
Well, thank you. It looks like Secretary Condos is, surveying the landscape there. This is certainly a whole new world. Other questions of the commissioner or staff?
Good.
Well,
Thank you, thank you. Good to see you all.
Very much. Good luck next door with your.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll follow up with that information.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Improvement.
Oh, gosh, where is Tim when I needed him? Oh, he was terrible.
Did he retire?
I don't know where he went, but you remember how Tim would just.
Oh, I know, it was awful to him.
No, he was awful to me.
He-
He would- Oh, one more question. One more question,
Yeah,
Madam
just one.
Chair. It's like, I could kill you. All right. So now we're on to Secretary of State, who is here with staff. And what is our timing? I've got to look here.
You got 45 minutes.
45 minutes, okay. So
He's the one that's quitting on us, right?
I guess so. He's moving on.
So we'll give him
So we have
Gary.
Secretary of State, we have his deputy, and we have Stacy Drinkwine and Delino here with us on screen. We actually, some of us are here in person at the State House. And so we're going to get started with your budget for 2023. So I don't know, are you going to do that, Secretary Condos? Are you muted, or did we mute you on
Yeah,
purpose?
he's muted. You sound good muted.
Of course, Bobby.
So
I am here.
Okay,
So I think you started to describe who's here for my team. My deputy is actually over, I think, in House Commerce, testifying over there. He'll join us as soon as he can. Lauren Hibbert, our OPR director, is here. Michelle Eno is our accounting manager, and Stacy Drinkwine is our admin services director and finance director. So that's who's here with us from our side, and I'll get right to it if that's what you would like, Madam Chair.
I would, and as you know from being in the Senate, we're not going to go through every document in your package, but we'd really like the high points. And also whether the sort of,
We'll get to the ups and downs.
well, we can get to the ups and downs, but also just to hear from you. I know you're not running again, so, but there are things that maybe you want to talk to us about, give us an update on some of the initiatives that might have been undertaken, or where you see additional work or initiatives that are being anticipated for this upcoming fiscal year. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in a cave.
I don't want too much glare on you. Leave one open.
Yeah. Gosh, we need light. Yeah, okay. So, so Secretary Congress will let you take it from there. Give you
All
lots of
right.
questions.
Sounds good. I think what I'm going to do is skip the first 5 pages because, and then there's a bunch at the back that we're not going to go through either. But the first 5 pages are really explains the office, and I think most everybody here knows all those pages probably by heart because they haven't changed much over the last 12 years. So I'm going to go right to page 6, which is something that we've been very proud of. When I first took office in 2011, our office was using 19 temporary positions. We now are down to 1, and that is it, just 1. And so that has made us very happy over the years. But the other piece on this page is also the overtime, and we've been keeping track of the overtime, and you can see these are the right-hand column is dollars that we've spent on overtime. The FY19 that you see, which was very high, that was due to the OPR new NGLP case management system that we were putting in place. So there was a lot of overtime that year. But other than that, this past year, we were down to $8,400 of overtime. And we're pretty proud that we've been able to manage that through the COVID situation. I also want to just, I think Senator Kitchell, you're well aware, I'm in my 12th year now, and we have never come to this committee or the House Committee of Appropriations during budget adjustment. And we're pretty proud of that. We get our budget approved and we work within that budget, and you know, we try to hold as much as we can. And in fact, in most years, we're giving you more money than we take out.
You're giving sort of the segue to the fact that we've got a shortfall in OPR.
Say that, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
I said, what this is leading up to is the shortfall in OPR because of some of the legislative changes around licensing, reciprocity, et cetera.
Yeah, well, that's coming, and that's why I've got Lauren here to help explain some of that. But I do want to go to page 7, which actually talks about we have basically 2 state funds. One is the SOS Services Fund. This is the one where this fund gets swept at the end of the year. And the 23 budget pressures that you are going to see there are that we have an increase of 9% due to salary and benefit contractual increases, but we also had to add a 20% elections match of $360,000 that was required to access the 2020 HAVA grant that we're using for tabulator purchase and election system upgrades. The other fund is the OPR fund, which by statute cannot be used for outside costs. We've also been very conscious and very positive towards the fact that we've never required a general fund appropriation for that. When we did the NGLP, the new case management system in FY19, we did that using our budget, our surplus. I hate to call it a surplus. Our standing budget that we had, we used that money to do that. And as of right now, that money is gone. We don't have any kind of a surplus at all in the OPR fund. But the budget pressures there, overall, it's a 2% decrease from 22. And that's because we've decreased the contracting on the next generation licensing platform for enhancements, and that reflects a slowdown in spending. So those are the 2 main funds. Our federal funds.
Jim, I wanted to go back. We had a memo. I got it. I don't know if it was directed. I don't know who it was originally from. OPR, talking about the fact that we were experiencing a shortfall because we were getting into because of telemedicine and that bill and some of the work that was done in prior legislation that was related to COVID that actually had a negative impact on the revenues to the office. So my understanding is that the telemedicine bill, we're going to have to address that revenue problem because it's only going to grow worse. You can't, it's cross-subsidize one professional group for another. And so that's something that we have to address. I know that the House did a separate bill and there's some, but I don't know if they actually dealt with the fact that the revenues are not going to be sufficient to meet the cost of the regulatory activities.
So Senator, I'm going to have Lauren Hibbert, who's the director of OPR, address that. She's been following that in the House, and let her explain. It's H 654 and 655, but I'll let her talk about that.
And we got the email with H 654, and I let it go because of the time sensitivity. But H 655 is going to have to be the vehicle that we address this internal deficit that has been created as a result of this legislation and because of COVID.
And we
So-
understand that. I'll let Lauren explain.
So I don't know what the House has done so far in H 655 to address that deficit that exists or even would grow because I think, well, first of all, they waived fees and then and I think they prorated fees for under certain conditions. And so the extent to which those costs have been addressed in H 655 before we get it, I guess is my question.
For the record, Lauren Hibbert, Director of the Office of Professional Regulation. You're hitting the nail square on the head. We have two separate problems. We have our revenue that we lost during COVID, which was I believe the memo that was before you was the $1 million general fund allocation request that we made as 654 is moving through the process. And that bill's now sitting, I believe, on the governor's desk for signature. That bill 654 extends the COVID provisions that have been in effect since March of 2022. Those COVID provisions essentially waive licensure requirements and fees, which is how we operate and generate revenue. So we have lost revenue during COVID as a result of the COVID provisions. We've been very proud of our work under COVID, our nimbleness under COVID. We have been a huge resource for the healthcare community, but also for all of our regulated communities. A lot of work went into providing profession-specific guidance. We were helping with real estate, with so not just healthcare, with real estate, with barber and cosmetology. We enacted emergency rules for notaries. I think we were the first agency to create emergency rules for administrative hearings. So there was a lot of work. Of course, a lot of that was IT work, which is expensive, as you all know. So those are the factors that led into why we were asking for the $1 million general fund allocation with 654. To my knowledge, we do not have any statutory language in place for that $1 million ask related to 654. We had thought that maybe it would be a budget adjustment request, but given the timing, that didn't work. I did testify in front of House Appropriations before town meeting week. I think that they're going to add it into the House version of the budget bill, but I'm not sure. And then we have a separate request related to the ongoing telehealth bill, which will set up a permanent structure for telehealth that will begin July 1st of 2023. There's a lot of work that needs to be done before that, work that we need to undertake in fiscal year 23. So from when the bill passes, from when 655 passes until July of next year, we need to do administrative rulemaking across multiple professions. We need to set up 2 application paths across 43 different profession types. We're going to have to do significant outreach. We're going to have to do a lot of web maintenance. This is going to take significant staff time. And we are asking for a general fund allocation to get us up and running. There is a reduced fee. The long-term telehealth solution includes a telehealth license and a telehealth registration. There is a reduced fee for both of those options. So we will not be generating our full license fee. We will run into,
So let me ask you, that's costing money because licensees that are paying that higher fee are gonna be, paying a reduced fee? We're gonna
that's,
have, but we don't know, on the other hand, are we gonna bring in other individuals? Even though it's at the reduced fee, there'll be more of them to help offset it? Or is that part of the calculus?
so the calculus, we did work with Nolan Longwell on a fiscal note for this for 655. The calculus is based on a series of guesstimates on our best guesstimates. So we think that we will lose. We looked at our licensee population. We sorted out the number of our licensee population that live out of state. And then we estimated that we will lose 25% of that group to one of these other licenses because they don't need the full in-state license. Both the telehealth registration and the telehealth license have restrictions on the number of clients you can have. And for the telehealth registration, it's for a defined amount of time. So we are anticipating losing some licensees, and we really have no way at this moment of knowing how many telehealth registrations or telehealth licenses we will gain. But I do think, you know, when I've talked about this bill about 655, I think there's a tension between the public good of promoting telehealth, which, you know, what led to the recommendations in 655 was a large working group that OPR led. We had 60 stakeholders in that group, everyone from the insurance industry to the hospitals, to individual associations of providers, to our board members, included the medical practice board. It was a very robust discussion about the path forward for telehealth. There's consensus that we need to support telehealth in this state, that our healthcare, our whole healthcare economy and institutions are now dependent on it in a way that they weren't before COVID. So we have this tension between the public good of promoting telehealth with the possible reduction of fees. And I think with this one-time budget allocation for 655, which is 360, will be set up to then be able to generate fee revenue. And in a couple of years, we'll have a better understanding of what the fees need to be for telehealth licenses and telehealth registrations to support the programs. And Madam Chair, you are absolutely correct. We do have a statutory requirement to not support one professional program with another. So that is a tension that we're watching every year with our budgets. And the other thing that I have really been trying to emphasize when talking about OPR's current budget shortfall is we had an OPR bill, OPR fee adjustment in 2019. I know I sat at that empty chair in front of that chalkboard in 2019 and promised this committee that I would be back in 2021 with a fee bill. And obviously it was just not the right time to be back with a fee bill. This year again was not the right time to be back with a fee bill, but I do anticipate next year that we will have a fee bill for OPR.
Well, we'll see what the House does to address sort of the debt that we currently have and how we move forward. But we did let H654 move forward because of the big time extensions, recognizing that there was more that we had to do. So
I appreciate that you guys did that. That was a pressure from my office as well. So thank you.
okay,
Okay,
we'll keep going.
all right. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Lauren, for your excellent explanation. So the federal funds that we have are, most of it's under elections. It's our HAVA funds, the EAC, Election Assistance Commission funds. We have actually two funds there. One is what we call Title II, Section 251, which was the original grant that was back in, or I think it was 2005 or 6. And we've been basically living off that for the last few years, all those years. We're currently at 2.77 with including interest earned. Most of that will be probably closed out because we are in the process right now of the final, we're just waiting for the final signatures from the administration on the purchase of new tabulators. We went through a very robust procurement process last year. We had 5 vendors. We ended up bringing in all 5. We had town clerks involved in the discussion, in the presentations that the 5 vendors had, and we made our choice, and we're now literally final days of the negotiations. We expect that contract to be signed by the administration on Friday of this week. The second part of the HAVA money is the security grants. And if you remember, we had a 2018 security grant of $3 million and a 2020 grant of $3 million. So at our urging, we got the Election Assistance Commission to allow the states to combine those into one fund so that we don't have to duplicate the reporting process, and makes it easier to follow. So we had originally $6 million, and of that we've expended about $1.6 million. And as we spend that money, we're having to match the requirements of the state match, and that money is 20%. The original money was 5%. That original money, we've already done the match that we needed. This is for the new stuff, and as we spend down in this grant, we will have to match that money. I do want to, at this point, I mentioned this last year, and I want to reiterate that unless Congress comes through with additional election-related monies, HAVA monies, this money is finite, and we will probably run out of HAVA money within the next 2 to 3 years. And at that point in time, it will require a general fund allotment assessment to be able to fund elections going forward. So we're still good. We're hopeful that there's an appropriations omnibus bill being negotiated right now in Congress. And my understanding is there is funding for elections in that money, but we don't know what the strings are that are attached to it. We haven't seen it. I've been in constant communication with Senator Leahy's team on appropriations. But in the next couple of years, we are going to have to look at a new election management system to replace the one that we have, which is going to be running into that 10-year life cycle. And you know, we're hopeful in the future that we're going to be even more efficient than we are today, which is more efficient than we were before. As far as there's some additional federal funds, OPR.
Standard.
That's what they got out here. I need to change it years.
Do you anticipate, with all the emphasis on elections and protections and so forth, that we're going to, you're saying you're looking at it. I know that the voting laws are kind of hitting a stone wall in Congress, but the integrity of elections seems to be right up at the top of the list. And so I was just wondering, your conversations with a congressional delegation make you feel optimistic that funding is going to be there in the long haul after the HAVA money runs out?
So, as I said, we think that as of right now, we're at somewhere around, or will be at the end of this year, fiscal year, at somewhere around 4.2 million left. A new election management system will be probably close to 3 million. And, we're obviously going to be very careful how we go forward. So we think we have enough for the next, again, I'm going to say next 2 to 3 fiscal years, but we can't guarantee that at this point. I will say, as I said just a few minutes ago, that Senator Leahy's appropriations, he's the appropriations chair at the US Senate. His team in negotiations with both, in the Senate, you've got the Republicans and the Democrats fighting over the money, but then you also have to deal with the House. And I think what's happening right now is they're trying to figure out the strings attached. I asked Senator Leahy's team to try to get rid of the match or reduce the match from 20%. That to us was very excessive. It was excessive when it was put in place for 2018 and 2020. We hope that they will reduce that. But right now, the current discussions are, it looks like Vermont will probably get somewhere around the same that we got in 2018 and 20, which is about 3 million, which should carry us forward from here. So, the big purchases are being made this year in vote tabulators, and then probably, I'd say 2 years down the road, when we put the new election management system in place. And these are critical to both the accuracy, the security, and the perception that the public has as far as our election systems. We are, once again, we are one of the top states in the country. In 2012, after my first election that I oversaw, we were ranked 38th in the nation by the Election Performance Index, which is run now by MIT. They use the same data from all 50 states. So we were 38th in the nation in 12. In 2014, we had moved up to 16th. When we changed and put our new election management system in place, after the 16 election, we were now number 1 in the nation. After the 2020 hasn't come out yet. It's actually coming out later this week. And we've been told we're one of the top states, but they haven't told us exactly where. But after the 18 election, we came in at 3rd in the nation. So we are one of the top states in the country ranking, and we're very proud of that fact that people in Vermont can be can feel like they have a state that has a system in place to protect the integrity of our elections, which is so critical to the very core of our democracy. And so, I'll just say that. If there's no other questions about elections, I'm going to move on to the other 2 federal grants.
We take pride in the integrity of our elections, so it's good to hear where.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
So you have a line in both, in the 3 million and the 6 that is post-election audits. How many discrepancies did you find in the audit, and how much did we pay for those audits?
So the audit costs us, I'm trying to remember exactly. Stacy, do you remember what the audit cost was? I think it's 25 or 35,000, something like that, to do the audit. And we do it every other.
Seven communities,
Excuse me?
7 towns are selected for audit, is it?
We randomly select 7 towns. We have them transport their ballots to us here in Montpelier. We hire an outside firm, completely different vote tabulator and a completely different system to and they scan each of those ballots from the 7 towns. And they do a comparison of what was reported on election night versus, what was reported as certified, which is usually 7 days after the election, to what is their finding as they do this. And typically, Senator Westman, we find there will be a discrepancy of 1, 2, 3 ballots, but nothing more than that. And usually It's because the original tabulators that we're using now didn't pick up a mark or something on one of the ballots, whereas the new systems are much more, the scanners are much better at picking up those marks. And we also have, if in case anybody's concerned with what happened over in New Hampshire actually did not, there are two things that happened in New Hampshire. One, they were not careful with the creation of their ballots, so they ended up with a fold going right through an oval, and the machines picked up, it was the old type scanner, picked up that shading from the fold. That was one thing. And then the other is that if there was a overvote, our machines are programmed to kick that ballot out if there's an overvote. An overvote is if there was vote for one and someone voted for two people. So it says one, and if someone voted for two people or there was a stray mark or something on there, that would show up as an overvote and would automatically, our system automatically kicks that ballot out so we can review it with the voter, versus what New Hampshire did was they unclicked it so that it would accept it as an overvote. And that created a real discrepancy problem over in Windham, New Hampshire. So we're trying to avoid all that, and as we go to put the new vote tabulators in, the new tabulators will go into about 150 towns in Vermont. We're going to be ordering about 260 of them. They cost about $6,000 each, and in fact, they will start shipping to the towns in the next probably 2 weeks, once the contract is signed on Friday, and we will start very intensive training with the town clerks over the next 2 months to make sure that they know how to use those tabulators as we go into the statewide primary in August.
Thank you.
So on page,
Bobby's got a question.
So Jim, what happens to the old tabulators?
we will get a very minor amount as a trade-in, because most of the technology that is used in those old tabulators actually dates back to the 90s and the early 90s. And some of those machines are actually about 20 years old. We've been having difficulty just this last week. We found that there were machines that were starting to break down and we were not able to get parts to fix them. So that's what also hastened the necessity to get new tabulators. And as you know, the legislature put in place probably 5 years ago a statute change that requires any town of 1,000 voters or more it mandates them that they have a tabulator to count their ballots, and the state pays for those. We also, if a town decides they want a machine, we will also supply a machine to those towns that want them. So we have about 150.
Machines, Jim.
What's that?
You trade them in? Do they recycle them? What do they do? Bobby wants to know what they do with machines.
They're going to recycle them, but they'll go through. I don't have all the details on it, but they'll go through a very. The vendor will pick up all those machines after the new machines are delivered, and then they will recycle those machines. They already have recycled the memory cards. Now it's just the machines themselves.
Okay, so one more question, Cyrus.
Yeah, Jim, I would think that you take, the town I live in, we got, I don't know how many voters, but maybe 1,200 or some 1,500 voters. Well, you compare that to a machine where, there's thousands of people. Why couldn't that machine, like from Troy, that hasn't been used, that much, be given to a town with, say, 800 people, because they don't qualify, right?
Well, if they Senator, if they request, if the town of 800 were to request a machine, we would provide that to them.
you would give
You're
them
just
one?
not required to,
It's just that any town of 1,000 or more is required to have one.
Because I know,
Anybody that requests one can have one.
oh, okay, that's good to know because the town of Jay, they spend hours up there counting the ballots by hand. And of course, there's only, I don't know, 400 voters, but it would be nice if they had a tabulator and, you get, a tabulator is a lot more accurate than a human doing ballots, I'll tell you.
Thank you, Senator. We agree.
Oh, yeah.
We agree. No, it really is a situation, and also state statutes require me to make the decision on which tabulator to use. Obviously, I have rulemaking that tells me how I make that decision, but we're supposed to have the same machine in all towns that use them in Vermont. So that's the other piece of that. So we couldn't have two different machines. But I will tell you the reason why our tabulators have lasted as long as they have, and as I said, over 20 years, is because we do the annual maintenance with our vendor. We have that vendor go out to every town and check them out, make sure, change any parts that are necessary. The problem we've had is those tabulators are now so old. They still function well, but they're so old, it's hard to get parts for them.
Yeah.
okay, well, on that note, we're all getting old, but I guess.
Yeah, we have to go get parts changed.
Yeah, or replaced, I guess.
Yeah.
Could be the risk. All right, shall we keep going?
So just while we're on the tabulators, for the first time, I was working at the polls the last election, and a woman came in who was in the safety program. And of course, the people who were handing out, she'd said, well, we don't have your name, or we don't have your, and she said, well, and so she fumbled around. She's kind of a little bit of an awkward person. Anyway, she got out her card, and sure enough, everything worked very smoothly. So it was, I know the woman. I didn't realize she was in the program. So worked well for her. She was very glad to be able to do it that way.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
So on getting back to the presentation on page 10, OPR is in their final year of, we had a 1-year no-cost extension federal grant. It was originally $450 over 3 years. They extended it by 1 more year with no additional money, but they've been working off of that. And Vasara has annually, we receive about 40,000. In the past, it used to be in 2-year chunks. So they would issue us 80,000 for 2 years, but now they've gone to a 1-year appropriation, and that comes from the National Historic Publications and Records grant, and that is used for our what we call our roving archivist, who goes out and works with the historical societies and libraries around the state. And it's been a very, very good program, very well received. On page 11 is the ARPA funding that we had for the business portal. We are still working off this money. The business portal, we ran into a snag with the data transfer from corporations from our current system over to the new system. So that was delayed. It was a lot of it was contract stuff, that trying to get the contracts out of the way and the vendors to talk to each other. We finally got that. We think we've got that resolved, and we expect that the business portal will be up and running by the end of this year. Next up is on page 12. This is the ups and downs. So on the ups and downs, I'm going to take you over to the right-hand column under total. You can see the difference. Looks like a huge amount. It's, the FY22 as passed was 14.1, and the total request this year is 17.7. However, I will tell you that of that 3.6 million increase, 3.1 of it is the HAVA money for paying for the tabulators, some costs around the vote by mail for ballot boxes for the towns, and the ballot curing process that we've put in place. So, and the ballot curing process actually worked pretty well. Senator Baruth probably knows a little bit about that because that turned into a problem, I guess, with the Burlington Ward 7 race, the Ali race. There was 7 ballots or 6 ballots that were not that were ruled defective because they did not. They were sent a postcard to reply to correct their ballots, but they didn't. This was the first actual test of the ballot curing process, and it's
Jim,
we think overall it went pretty well.
just a quick question on that. So as I understand it, Stith, I believe, was Ali Deng's challenger, and he has the ability to appeal now. I think his argument is that more curing should have been done. In other words, is it sufficient to just send a postcard to the address, or would he have an argument that more could have been done?
Well, we couldn't have done more because we don't have phone number contacts or emails for every registered voter. We have almost 500,000 registered voters, and up to this point, we've only been required, as by the legislature, to not collect phone numbers and emails. So that's something that we have started to do, but it's not complete by any means. What we did do though is and we're doing this, we're paying for this, is providing the cities and towns with I guess I'll call it a postcard that they can send to the people to tell them, here's how you can correct the curing process, depending on what it is that they did. It's basically a checkoff thing, and they can go right to their My Voter page and do it online. And you know, there's a system in place. This is the first election we've used it. And, you know, I do have to smile a little because we've pushed this forward. We think this is the right thing to do. Many other states do ballot curing, but we never did before. So before, if someone submitted a ballot and forgot to sign the thing, it was done. It was defective, period.
I was thinking of Al Franken when he had his big ballot challenge, and there was national scrutiny of those ballots. There was no curing going on. It was just interpretation of what was there. Thanks for that. I was glad to see that resolved, but then I was just wondering if there was more thought going into additional curing for the future.
Well, in the future, you know, I think things will change as we get more contact information for registered voters, but we just don't have it right now. It's not been a requirement at this point. So, you know, we will over time. It's just, if you think back, and I know some of the, you know, Senator Westman and Kitchell and Sears will remember the debates that we had in the early 2000s over voter registration and whether, you know, we should be, you know, the driver's license issue. So now we do collect the driver's license information, but that only gives us certain pieces of information from the DMV, as DMV is being protective of their systems as well. So we're getting better. This is the first trial of it, and we'll use it again, obviously 2 more times this year. But we're pretty pleased with how it went forward. And the answer to your first question, I think the opponent of Ali does have an opportunity. I think by this Friday he has to make a decision on it if he wants to challenge it in court.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Senator Starr, you have a question?
Well, I was just wondering, hey, Jim, how many times does a person have to correct their ballots? I mean, years back, you went in and voted, and if you messed it up and it was thrown out, it was thrown out. And I mean, with all this modernization, that should have been more simple.
Well, I don't disagree. I think that some of that has to, we have to work with the legislature to change some of those processes. For instance, the one area where we do have issues that need to be addressed before we can even extend vote by mail to the statewide primary. The statewide primary, currently, we have to send 3 ballots, one for each party, to each voter, and they have to return all 3. So if they only return 1, that's considered a defective ballot. So we do have some issues that we have to address in the process, and that will be done, I think, next year. That's the plan, is that next year the legislature will take up, the House and Senate GovOps will take up that issue. But I think, to be honest, we had in 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, in 2020, we had about 1,500 defective ballots, in both the primary and the general election. Most of those could have probably been corrected. A lot of them were that they put their voted ballot in the wrong envelope, or they didn't put the unused ballots in. They didn't sign the absentee form on there to designate that it was coming from them. Those are the things that we can correct. They're not going to be able to correct. They're not going to be able to pull their ballot back and correct the ballot itself. It's really about the process of how that ballot gets into the hands of the clerk.
Well, I don't know, but it seems like we'll have a voting time that'll go on for weeks instead of one day.
Well,
If we
Senator,
allow,
I will just say that Vermont's laws are very tight on certification of the results. We have on election night, we have the unofficial results that are posted online. And then by statute, over the next 48 hours, the town clerks have to review, edit, and certify their election results and get them to our office, which by 7 days after, so the Tuesday after the election, we have to have we bring in all 3 major parties and we certify the results of the previous election. So we're one of the shortest timeframes of only 7 days. There are some that don't certify their elections until the end of November.
well, yeah, that's messed up and wrong.
So on the ups and downs, Senator Kitchell, so our overall increase this year is 3.6 million. As I said, 3.1 million is coming out of the HAVA dollars. The remaining 500,000 is basically in 2 areas. Because we do not receive general funds except for election ballots once every 2 years, we do not receive the Pay Act. So the rest of that money is Pay Act and the HAVA match. And the HAVA match of that 519,000 is 360,000 for this time around. So we're talking about what? About 230,000 or something is the Pay Act for our agency, and that's basically it. Other than that, I mean, the OPR is actually down, and I think pretty much everything else is in pretty good shape.
Okay, well, I think you're right. The budget's pretty straightforward. We've got a big purchase, and but I think after 20 years, technology does change, and so other questions, Terry Condos, other than we'll be watching for H655, Senator Ruth. And then we need to take up a bill to get it out before our next session, our next scheduled witness, which is at the auditor's office.
Jim, I just wanted to take the opportunity. I don't know that I'll get it again, but you have been an amazing Secretary of State, and you've made us all proud. So
Do
thank
we
you
have
very
a
much.
campaign finance report due in March?
I'm sorry?
Do we have campaign finance report due in March?
Yes, we do.
What day?
15?
March 15th.
I have a slight problem. I filed mine a couple of days late, and so I actually have my March 15th report filed, like back in the fall or in December or something. So I want you to know this time I'm ahead. I was behind, and now I'm ahead.
If you have any questions, please give JP Isabel a call.
I tried, I emailed, I said, I want this report, and there's no way the system would allow it. So I'm, people are gonna say I didn't file a report. Well, I filed it.
Well, we have a date, if you file the report for March 15th, 2022, it'll show up as filed for March 2022. So the system doesn't erase that. It will say you filed it on such and such a date. So,
Yeah.
But you can also amend it. So from the time you filed it, let's just say you filed it accidentally in January, but you received either expended or received money in the meantime, you can amend your report.
Yeah, well, I may have to do that. Anyway, it's an interesting experience. Okay, Alice. and then
Just
we're
one
gonna
thing
have
with it's a little bit frustrating when some bills come in late after the election, but since everything seems to close out like at the beginning of the next year, so you may still have some bills that come in that you want to pay, and it looks like then you have to say you're starting out with a new report then.
Oh, yeah. It's like you're committing yourself to run for reelection.
It's a little bit better. It improved it a little the last time, I think, but it looks like, you have to say, okay, I'm running again, even though you might not.
Senator Nitka, I would just say that, so there is a report that is filed, I think it's November 15th or something like that, after the election. And then that can be your final report, or you can hold off until December 15th when the state statutes say is the official end of that election year. And then the new election year starts the next day.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's just that some of those bills don't come in that quickly, and then you've got a bill that you pay and it looks like you're committing to running that. But
Well,
whatever.
you can just you can put that expense on your next year's bill, that's all.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we've gone through your budget. It's pretty straightforward. We're gonna have more discussion about OPR in a variety of ways. And if we have any questions, we'll get back to you, Jim, and thank you for all your years of service. And so this is sort of your last budget.
Yes, and I hope that my predecessor or my successor will not have to come to you for a budget adjustment.
We like that too. Okay.
You know what you're going to do next?
Chris, what?
Do you want to?
I know what I'm going to do next.
Yeah.
I'll probably do some traveling, and I'll probably I've got grandkids to take care of.
Oh, nice.
Well,
Great.
we wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, Jim.
Take care, Jim.
So our next item is to take up a bill. It's on the Alzheimer's Commission. And Senator Hardy and Senator Brock, over there, Senator Hardy right there. Yes, the reason it would come to us is, well, the only thing is they're adding the director of the blueprint for health, which is state employees, so they're already getting paid. And then the other is, it's been a position that's been federally funded, and so anticipating at some point in the future how that position would continue and to be funded. There's not a creation of a position, but it's anticipating how would you plan to fund that function once the federal grant is ended. But we're lucky we have Senator Harding here, who is presented the bill from Health and Welfare. And so those are the reasons that we would get it, is adding another person. And then probably reference to the position, which could represent funding. So you want to just highlight for us, are there other changes to the bill that are probably are monetary or much more kind of cleanup, but whatever you want to tell us, over and above what I've laid out, which I think is why we're getting it.
Yep.
And maybe I haven't done that justice, so please fill in the blanks.
Thank you, Senator Kitchell. Thank you. It's nice to see everybody. I'm Ruth Hardy, Senator from Addison County, for the record. Yes, S206 is mostly a bill about coordinating our planning, healthcare planning and public health planning for people impacted by Alzheimer's, both individuals and their families. We have, it actually turns out, many, many plans that sort of touch on Alzheimer's and aging issues, but aren't well coordinated. So this coordinates those plans and integrates Alzheimer's disease into the recently passed Older Vermonters Act and the plan that's required under that. So it creates, that's the bulk of the bill. It creates a subsection of that plan about Alzheimer's.
And that would be, I mean, Alzheimer's is one diagnosis within that broader umbrella of cognitive impairments.
Yes.
So this is really broader than someone who with a clinical diagnosis of Alzheimer's, but is experiencing dementia of some other form or.
Right, it's ADRD, Alzheimer's disease and related dementia, I believe is what is. So it's a broader than just Alzheimer's, shorthand Alzheimer's. There's an existing Alzheimer's commission. Senator Brock is on that commission, and that's why he introduced this bill. And the attempt is to really, like I said, coordinate the planning and coordinate to make sure that families who are experiencing Alzheimer's or as caregivers or as impacted individuals get the support that they need from the state. So in doing that, we made some changes to the Alzheimer's Commission, the membership on that commission. And as Senator Kitchell said, we added the director of the Blueprint for Health, and then we added hospital managers, but took out a member of the business community. So the hospital manager and the business community was a swap. So that would be revenue neutral in terms of the per diems. And then the Blueprint for Health director is a state employee. So he wouldn't get a per diem. And that's in the very first section of the bill. And then as you go down, I believe it's section 6, does have a report from the Department of Health back to us in December for how to fund a position, the Alzheimer's Disease Coordinator, which is a shared position between the Department of Health and Department of Aging and Independent Living. It's currently federally funded through a grant that the state gets through, I think it's September of 2023, so a little bit beyond FY23. But there's concern, of course, that what happens when that position goes away or that grant dries up, what will happen to that position. And so this is an attempt to get Dale and VDH to come back to us and say, this is how we're going to fund that position. One of the ideas is that this better coordination and better oversight will put us in a position that we're more likely to get another federal grant. And so hopefully they'll come back and say, we've got a new federal grant, we're going to fund the position with the federal grant. There's always obviously the possibility that they come back and ask for general fund, but it's just a request. It's not creating the position. Exactly. So that's presumably why you got the bill sent to you. We tried really hard to make sure it did not have an appropriation in it. So it originally did, and we took it out.
So, and let me tell you, that would be another reason, even though you amend the bill, if the underlying bill is introduced, has an appropriation, we would get it. People would say, but we didn't appropriate anything, why are you getting it?
Yeah, I don't remember what version of the bill had it in it. At one time it had it of an appropriation. But
so that might be a third reason why.
Exactly.
So it's pretty straightforward in terms of what it is doing. And I guess if you're saying Senator Brock as a member of the commission, they probably had discussion about the need to update and do some work here in terms of the composition as well as there's some revision of the text in terms of submitting comments and so forth.
Exactly, and we worked closely with BDH and Dale to make sure they were both comfortable with the bill and how it is laid out. It does give the commission another duty of looking at workforce and making sure that there's a dementia. Of course, workforce is the word of the session, right? Making sure there's a dementia knowledgeable workforce so that people who work with people with Alzheimer's understand the disease. So, but that doesn't require them, it's already a very large commission and it's a sort of subcommittee of the commission that would look at it, so.
Well,
Do you want a motion to move the bill?
Yes, I would like a
Right,
motion.
move the bill.
Where's our, who's our clerk?
He's up
I
there
am your clerk.
doing something.
All right, you're the clerk. So,
I'm just waiting to be called upon.
okay, other questions? Otherwise, we're gonna move the bill favorably. And we have a motion from Senator Westman to move it favorably, a second by Senator Starr. If there are no further questions or discussion, we will have our esteemed clerk call the roll.
Senator Ballin. Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka.
Yes,
Senator Sears.
Yes,
Senator Westman. Oops,
Yes.
Senator Starr, sorry. Senator Starr.
Yes,
And now Senator Westman.
Do I get 2 votes? Yes.
No.
did that mean he voted no or did
Wait
he
a
vote
minute, the chair
yes?
hasn't voted.
Wait. He can cure his vote.
oh,
And Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to hold it open for Senator Ballant? Or
No, I think her schedule is so crazy,
Yeah.
we'll just let it go.
Okay,
We've got to start moving these bills out and we need a reporter from Appropriations. Thank you. Dale, I think that's probably you and help. So Senator Westman's the reporter of the bill. I think you're up to it.
This is a hard.
so that's 601.
660. He's got that. Okay, so we have a little break.
You have a break until 3:30 when we have the auditor. So I'm gonna take us offline.
Please take us offline.
Okay.